Today I'm going to see if the Cobra Aerojet or the Aerojet Max are going to go in my bag. What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda here. I am with my gamer driver here. This is a Cobra LTD-X driver. I wasn't going to buy another driver last year, but I tried this sucker out, and man, it was just the best driver I've ever had in my life, and I really loved it. But, as I mentioned, Bryson DeChambeau and Kyle Berkshire have been working with Cobra to develop a brand new driver head, and this is it, the Aerojet. And they were speaking so highly of this, I thought, well, even though the technology difference doesn't seem huge, well, maybe I'll give it a shot. Maybe I will tip the cap to Bryson and just say, hey, Bryson, I trust you. My friend, I trust you, and I will go ahead and spend my money and get this driver. So not only did I get this driver head, I got this driver head. I actually got them on shafts, but I took them off because I'm not going to use those shafts. I'm going to use the Brava BGT shaft that I have here so that everything is nice and consistent, because that's what we do here in the science community at the Panda Research Institute. Because I was a little confused if either one of these would be better for me. The Aerojet head, this is the one that's supposed to fit a lot of people. It's kind of a neutral driver, you know, kind of the big forgiving shape, weight in the back here. And this one is the Aerojet Max. As you can see, it's got the swappable weights, 3 gram, 12 gram, and this is supposed to be for people who are kind of fighting a slice, or for people who want to swap these weights and really put a draw on the ball. So I thought, well, maybe this would be kind of like the LTD-X head that I'm playing, but maybe it would even be better to get something a little more forgiving. As far as I can tell, this has maybe a little higher MOI, but it's supposed to be more forgiving, and maybe just give me a little bit more of that draw that I want, maybe a little more powerful shot. So I thought either one of these could be in contention. Now, I will say, it's possible that I hit these, and I don't see anything that indicates they're going to be better than my LTD-X driver head. That's definitely a possibility because, as we know, driver design is really limited by USGA rules, and so they can't really put more core or anything like that. So I don't really expect them to be farther or faster than my current driver. But what I'm really curious about is, can one of these driver heads be more consistent with off-center hits? Because, you know, when I try, I can hit it off-center. You know, I don't do it naturally. Especially this Max driver. People hitting it say, man, it just feels stable. You can't almost hit it wrong. And I thought, wow, if this driver here is really that forgiving, well, maybe that's really what I need, even if it bleeds off just a little bit of speed. Now, from some of the early testing that I've seen from the people who had this prior to the embargo, the Aerojet is definitely the farther of the two driver heads. In fact, most of the people I've seen, you know, hit this one consistently farther. But I'm just curious to see what an average, non-professional, recreational, trunk slammer golfer gets.
You've got a cold heart and a cold hard truth. I got a bottle of whiskey, but I got no proof that you showed up tonight in that dress just to mess with my head. So much for so long, out of sight, out of mind. Girl, you're looking so good, it's driving me out of mind. Are you breaking my heart? Baby, you're playing hard to forget. Told me to leave all your things out on the porch on the swing. Come and grab them by the end of the week. It's just some jeans and a shirt, but it's a...
Alright, so I'm not going to show you a bunch of data, because I think if I showed you the data on the drivers that I tested here, that it probably wouldn't surprise you. A lot of the shots look pretty similar. So, as we know, a lot of the technology is kind of plateaued. I mean, unless the rules change. And so I don't know that you're going to see a lot of difference, maybe meaningful differences between a lot of drivers. That being said, I have been more surprised about this year's driver pick than I have ever been before, and that is because I really expected to just go with the Cobra Aerojet. You know, I'm a big Bryson DeChambeau fan. He says that he's working with Cobra to make the best driver ever, and I kind of believe that because I feel like he knows what he's doing in the driver world. Now, what's interesting is that through this process, Cobra and Bryson have apparently parted ways. They have divorced, and Cobra, actually, what kind of disappointed me about them is put out a statement that was pretty inflammatory and just said he's hard to work with with, and that he thinks he's so smart, and that no one has a silver bullet, and whoever works with him next is going to learn how tough he is to work with. So all right, well, that's an interesting way to go about working with your former ambassador and face of the company. So anyway, I tried the Aerojets because I have the LTD-X and because I have loved that driver a lot. I kind of expected maybe some improvements over that driver in the Aerojet, and the Aerojet and the Aerojet Max were the two that I thought I would go between those two. Now, the thing I realized here is the Aerojet Max is actually a very good driver, but it was probably a little bit more draw bias than I would like, because sometimes my misses are to the left, and having something draw biased actually kind of exacerbates that. The other thing that I saw with the Max is that it was consistently like 4 or 5 yards shorter than kind of everything else I was hitting, which isn't a lot. I wouldn't call it really material, but I'll take the 4 or 5 yards when I can get them. And combined with the fact that it was just a little bit more left bias than I would like, and just a little bit shorter, that was out of contention pretty quickly. Now, the Aerojet is the one I thought would be the clear winner, neutral, if it hits as well as my LTD-X, but is just more forgiving because of this kind of PWR-SHELL face. Well, then that would be awesome. And it did seem to be everything that they advertised, except I have a hard time telling, in my data especially, whether the driver is actually more forgiving or not. You can say, hey, closer dispersion, but sometimes I just hit some bad shots, and the LTD-X is a pretty forgiving driver. So anyway, they seem to be about the same, and I was really saying, if I've got the Aerojet and I've got the LTD-X and I'm going to get rid of one of them, why not just get rid of the Aerojet? Because the LTD-X has been so good to me, and I do like the milled face, and I don't know if the Aerojet is more forgiving. It seems to be, but it's hard to show in the data. They just performed about the same. So if you have the LTD-X, I guess my thought was, why should I upgrade? So I started to play around with some other stuff, including this driver right here. This is the Ping G430 Max, because this is the one that's supposed to be the most forgiving. It's supposed to be the most forgiving driver in the market. And I thought, you know what? If all these drivers perform basically about the same, and they have thinned up this face 6%, it's a titanium face, I think, and so it's supposed to give you some of that distance that maybe the Max was lacking in the previous generation, the G425. Now, I thought, all right, so if it's getting the same distance, and this is now still the most forgiving driver in the world, I think Rick Shields plays a Ping. So if really good golfers, or at least golfers much better than me, are playing these drivers and saying that, hey, they need that extra help, who am I to say I don't need the extra help? I certainly could use something that is going to put me in the fairway more often. So I played this, and I was trying it, and I really loved it. I was like, I found the driver that I want to play, even though it doesn't have any exotic composites or carbon fiber or anything. It's just metal here, and I think that's actually part of the reason why it's so forgiving, because you just have a heavy metal all the way around the face, kind of like a tube of heavy metal, and you're hitting the ball with the middle. You just got weight all around, not just on the edges or in the back, just all the way around. It's got to be forgiving. And I also love the fact that the weight is movable here. So if you're tweaking your swing, you've got a little bit different technique, you're taking a stronger grip or something like that, and you want to go to fade bias or neutral or draw biased or whatever, this kind of gives you some room to grow into the driver. And so I was hitting this, and I was like, yeah, dude, this is my driver for this year. Looks good. I wouldn't say it looks great. It doesn't have as high-tech of a look as some of the other ones. It looks a little chunky. It kind of looks a little overstyled, in my opinion, to be honest. You know what? It played very well for me. And I thought, my search is over. I'm going with the Ping. However, I went and I started playing with this Free Flex shaft. A whole video is coming on that, and I really love it. But what the Free Flex shaft requires is that the shaft has to be aligned. Kind of like if you were to pure a shaft, and you need that shaft to kind of be in a certain orientation. And so the Free Flex shafts are kind of like that. And so I was really forced into going with the driver that I'm going to be playing for the rest of the season, and that's because the hosel on this driver does not clock the same way it does on the Ping or the Cobras, right? It is the Callaway Paradigm. This is the standard Paradigm. It's not the X or the triple diamond. This is just standard Paradigm. Movable weight right here. Crushed carbon fiber. Forged carbon fiber, as they say. There's things that I like and things that I don't like about it, but I will say it seems to play as well as any of the other driver heads. Is it as forgiving as the Ping? Again, it's a little hard to say. It seems like it's a pretty forgiving driver. I have played in the past like the Rogue and some of the other drivers. The Maverick Max was a driver I played for a while. I really like that. So it seems like, hey, if it's just an evolution on those, it should be pretty good. So I picked this one, but the real reason, the deciding factor for me was the hosel adapter here. So when you make the adjustments with the little collars, the head stays in the same position, which means the spline on the free flex shaft stays in the same position, and that means I can adjust this on the fly. And you might be saying, well, Pete, once you dial in your launch angle, why would you have to change it? Why not just clock the adapter to where you need it and play with it all season? Well, sometimes, you know, you're tweaking your swing throughout the years. Sometimes you're getting a little better. Sometimes I want to go down or up a degree or whatever and just kind of see if I can dial it in. And this allows me to do it without compromising the features of the free flex shaft, which so far I have loved. And combined with this Callaway Paradigm driver head, I think it will be my best gamer ever. That's what I'm really hoping for. The simulator says the numbers look good, but we will find out in the real world. So the reveal here is, instead of the Aerojet or instead of the Ping, the Callaway Paradigm is the new driver for the Panda bag this year. So if you want to pick up this or the Ping or the Aerojet, I'll put links to them in the description below. They're all great drivers. Peter Von Panda, out.
We can discover more and explore so much deeper.